Did you know Steve Jobs almost never existed? In 1955, in San Francisco, a baby boy was born. His mother was a graduate student, his father a Syrian exchange student. They couldn't raise the child. But then, an ordinary couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, adopted the boy. Paul was a mechanic, Clara was an accountant. They named him Stephen Paul Jobs. Paul taught Steve about electronics in the garage. This very garage would later become the birthplace of Apple. Growing up in the emerging Silicon Valley, Steve soon showed a peculiar passion for technology. This boy was unlike anyone, stubborn, curious, and always asking why. What's the lesson here? Steve Jobs was abandoned at birth. But that very fact shaped who he became. He proved that you don't need a perfect beginning to live an extraordinary life. Sometimes, the things cast aside are the most precious of all. But the story doesn't end here. One day in 1971, Steve Jobs met someone who would change his life forever. Who was it? Stay tuned for the next episode. If these two people had never met, you probably wouldn't have an iPhone in your hand today. In 1971, Steve Jobs was just 16 years old. He was a peculiar teenager, obsessed with electronics, drawn to philosophy, and unwilling to listen to anyone. A mutual friend introduced him to a guy 5 years older named Steve Wozniak. Wozniak was a technical genius. He could build an entire computer from scratch with his bare hands. Jobs wasn't as technically gifted as Wozniak. But he had something Wozniak didn't: vision. Jobs saw commercial potential in everything Wozniak built. They complemented each other perfectly. Wozniak was the technical brain. Jobs was the one who turned ideas into reality. One invented, the other sold. They became inseparable friends. What's the lesson here? No one succeeds alone. Steve Jobs needed Wozniak, and Wozniak needed Jobs. Genius isn't about knowing everything, it's about finding someone who completes your weaknesses. But before creating Apple, the two Steves did something illegal together. What was it? Stay tuned for the next episode. Did you know Apple almost never existed, if not for an illegal device? In 1972, Wozniak read an article about hackers who cracked AT&T's phone system. They used a device called the Blue Box to make free calls anywhere in the world. Wozniak was instantly hooked. With his technical talent, he built a perfect blue box. And Jobs? Jobs saw a business opportunity. Jobs started selling blue boxes to college students in dorms, $150 each. They made money, but more importantly, they realized something. Together, they could build tech products and sell them to the world. Once, Wozniak even used the blue box to call the Vatican, pretending to be Henry Kissinger to speak with the Pope. Of course, they didn't reach the real Pope. But that was the spirit of the two Steves, daring to do crazy things. Steve Jobs once said, if there had been no blue box, there would have been no Apple. Because the blue box taught them that two ordinary people could build something small, and that small thing could control an entire giant system. After the blue box, Jobs decided to drop out of college. But instead of going home, he flew to India. Why? The next episode will reveal all. Steve Jobs once said, his trip to India was one of the most important things in his life. But why would a tech genius go to India seeking enlightenment? In 1973, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Oregon. But after just 6 months, he dropped out. He felt college was a waste, spending his adoptive parents' life savings without learning anything meaningful. Even after dropping out, Jobs wandered around campus, sleeping on friends' floors, returning soda bottles for food money. And he sneaked into a calligraphy class. This seemingly useless class would later change the entire design industry. In 1974, Jobs decided to fly to India. He walked barefoot on dusty roads, lived in ashrams, and meditated for hours. He was searching for the meaning of life, and he found something deeper than technology. India taught Jobs about simplicity, about intuition, about listening to your heart instead of your mind. When he returned to America, he brought back Zen philosophy, and this philosophy will become the DNA of every Apple product. What's the lesson here? Sometimes, getting lost is the right path. Jobs dropped out, wandered, went to India. It sounds like failure. But every one of those experiences shaped the man who created the iPhone. Trust your journey, even when it doesn't make sense yet. After returning from India, Jobs and Wozniak embarked on a crazy project, building a personal computer in a garage. And that's when Apple was born. Stay tuned for the next episode. The world's first trillion-dollar company was born in a garage. In 1976, Steve Jobs was 21, Steve Wozniak was 26. Wozniak had just completed a masterpiece, the first personal computer that worked right out of the box. Jobs looked at that computer and said, "We have to sell it." Wozniak just wanted to share it for free with the community. But Jobs convinced him, and Apple Computer Company was officially founded on April 1, 1976. To raise capital, Jobs sold his beloved Volkswagen van. Wozniak sold his HP calculator. They scraped together $1,300, and started building Apple I right in the garage of Jobs' parents' house. Apple I only sold 200 units. But Apple II, launched in 1977, was an explosion. It became the best-selling personal computer in the world. And in 1980, when Apple went public, Jobs became a millionaire at age 25. What's the lesson here? Every great empire starts from a very small place. A garage. An idea. And two people crazy enough to believe they could change the world. Don't wait for perfect conditions, start with what you have. Apple was on top of the world. But Jobs was about to make a terrible mistake, and it would get him fired from the very company he created. What happened? Stay tuned for the next episode. 25 years old, worth $256 million. But money couldn't buy what Steve Jobs truly wanted. After Apple went public in 1980, Jobs became one of the youngest wealthy people in America. But inside the company, everything was beginning to crack. Jobs was obsessed with perfection. He demanded everything be beautiful, even the inside of computers that no one would ever see. He berated employees, called their work garbage. Many talented people started leaving. The Lisa project failed miserably. Jobs was pushed out of that project and moved to the Macintosh team. He poured his heart and soul into Mac, but created conflicts with the rest of the company. Macintosh launched in 1984 with a legendary Super Bowl commercial. It was a design masterpiece. But sales didn't meet expectations. The board started blaming Jobs, and they found a new CEO to replace him. What's the lesson here? Talent without leadership skills isn't enough. Jobs was a genius, but he didn't know how to work with people. Perfection that ignores others' feelings is sometimes the greatest imperfection of all. And then the worst happened. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he himself founded. What did that feel like? Stay tuned for the next episode. It's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy. That's Steve Jobs' famous quote. And it's also exactly what got him fired. In 1983, Jobs recruited John Scully, the CEO of Pepsi, to become Apple's CEO. Jobs asked Scully a legendary question: do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? Scully agreed. But before long, the two began clashing. Jobs wanted to invest heavily in Macintosh. Scully wanted to protect Apple II revenues. The power struggle grew fiercer by the day. In May 1985, Jobs tried to overthrow Scully in a board meeting. But the plan was exposed. The board voted, and they chose Scully. Jobs was stripped of all power. The founder was kicked out of his own house. Jobs left Apple in tears. He was 30 years old. He lost his company, his team, his purpose. He once said, "I felt like somebody had punched me in the gut, and I couldn't breathe." What's the lesson here? Sometimes life knocks you all the way down. But it's in the darkest moments that you discover who you truly are. Jobs was fired at 30, but his story was only just beginning. After being fired, Jobs didn't give up. He started a new company, bought a small animation studio, and that studio would create a movie that changed all of Hollywood. Stay tuned. Getting fired from Apple was the worst thing that ever happened to Steve Jobs. But he said, it was also the best. In 1985, after leaving Apple, Jobs used his fortune to start a new company, Next Computer. The goal, to create the most perfect computer ever made. Next created beautiful products, but they were too expensive. The next computer cost $6,500, few could afford it. Commercially, Next was a failure. But Next software would later become the foundation of macOS. At the same time, Jobs spent $10 million buying a small graphics division from Lucasfilm. That division was called Pixar. At first, nobody thought Pixar would succeed, not even Jobs himself. But in 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first computer-animated film in history. It was a massive hit. Pixar went public right after, and Jobs became a billionaire. The outcast was back. What's the lesson here? Failure isn't the end, it's the beginning of something bigger. If Jobs hadn't been fired from Apple, there would be no Next, no Pixar, and no stronger version of Steve Jobs returning. And then, in 1997, Apple called Jobs. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy and needed him back. The outcast would become the savior. Stay tuned. In 1997, Apple was just 90 days from bankruptcy. And the only person who could save the company was the man they had fired 12 years earlier. After years of losses, Apple acquired Next in 1997, and with that deal, Steve Jobs returned. Initially just as an advisor. But everyone knew he would take charge. The first thing Jobs did was cut. Apple was selling 15 different products. Jobs cut it down to 4. He drew a simple grid, consumer and pro, desktop and portable. Just 4 products. Nothing more. Then he launched the Think Different campaign, featuring images of Einstein, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. The message, Apple doesn't just sell computers. Apple celebrates the crazy ones who believe they can change the world. In 1998, Jobs unveiled the iMac, a translucent, candy-colored computer. It broke every design rule. Computers didn't have to be gray and boring. The iMac sold 800,000 units in 5 months. Apple was alive again. What's the lesson here? Sometimes, saving something isn't about adding more, it's about removing. Jobs didn't save Apple by creating more products. He saved it by focusing. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Apple was alive again. But Jobs was just getting started. He was about to create a tiny device that would change how the entire world listens to music. What was it? Stay tuned. Before the iPod, to listen to music outside, you had to carry hundreds of CDs. Steve Jobs thought, why not put them all in your pocket? In 2001, the music industry was in chaos. Napster allowed free illegal downloads. Record labels lost billions. Nobody could find a solution until Jobs stepped in. Jobs unveiled the iPod in October 2001 with the slogan, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Small, beautiful, and controlled with a click wheel. It wasn't the first music player, but it was the first one people actually wanted to use. But the iPod alone wasn't enough. Jobs created the iTunes Store in 2003, where you could buy any song for just 99 cents. Legal. Easy. Fast. He saved the entire music industry by giving people a better way to buy music than to steal it. The iPod became a cultural phenomenon. White earbuds became iconic. Apple was no longer just a computer company. Apple became a company that changed how people live. What's the lesson here? Don't just create a product, create an experience. The iPod succeeded not because it had the most storage or the best battery. It succeeded because the entire experience, from design, to iTunes, to how it felt in your hand, was perfect. The iPod was just the beginning. Jobs was cooking up something far bigger, a device that would change everything. It wouldn't just play music, it would replace your phone, camera, and internet. Stay tuned. In October 2003, doctors told Steve Jobs he had pancreatic cancer. They said he had only 3 to 6 months to live. While Apple was at its peak, Jobs faced the biggest personal battle of his life. But instead of immediate surgery, he chose a different path. Jobs refused surgery for 9 months. He tried veganism, herbal remedies, acupuncture, every natural method. This was perhaps the biggest mistake of his life. Many doctors believed that if he had operated early, he could have been saved. Finally, in July 2004, Jobs agreed to surgery. The operation was successful, but the cancer had time to spread. Despite this, Jobs returned to Apple stronger than ever, because he knew time was running out. Facing death, Jobs worked with unprecedented intensity. He said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." What's the lesson here? Life is shorter than you think. Jobs regretted not operating sooner. But the near-death experience taught him, don't waste time living someone else's life. Time is the most precious thing you have. Even while fighting cancer, Jobs prepared the most important speech of his life, at Stanford. 3 stories. 3 lessons. That would bring millions to tears. Stay tuned. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. These 6 words changed the lives of millions of people around the world. On June 12, 2005, Steve Jobs stood before thousands of Stanford graduates. He had just survived cancer surgery. And he decided to tell them 3 stories, not about success, but about failure, loss, and death. Story 1, Connecting the Dots. Jobs told about dropping out and sneaking into calligraphy class. 10 years later, that calligraphy knowledge became the foundation for beautiful fonts on the Macintosh. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward. Story 2, about love and loss. Jobs told about being fired from Apple and instead of giving up, he started over. Getting fired was the worst tasting medicine, but it was exactly what the patient needed. Story 3, about death. Jobs said, death is the single best invention of life. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And he ended with the immortal words, stay hungry. Stay foolish. Never stop being curious, never stop chasing what you believe in. After that legendary speech, Jobs returned to Apple with a secret. He was developing a device that would change everything. And the world wasn't ready for it. Stay tuned. On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto the stage and said, "Today Apple reinvents the phone." And he did exactly that. In 2007, phones had physical keyboards, tiny screens, and looked terrible. BlackBerry was king. Nokia thought no one needed a touchscreen phone. They were wrong. Jobs unveiled the iPhone with 3 features, a widescreen iPod, a revolutionary phone, and a breakthrough internet device. Then he said, these are not 3 devices. This is one device. The audience exploded. A secret few people know, right before the launch, the iPhone was still full of bugs. It crashed constantly. The team had to find a specific sequence of actions that wouldn't crash, and Jobs had to demo exactly that sequence. One small mistake and everything would collapse on stage. The iPhone sold 6 million units in its first year. But more importantly, it changed how humans live. From how we communicate, take photos, listen to music, read news, to how we think. The world before and after the iPhone are 2 different worlds. What's the lesson here? Don't ask customers what they want, because they don't know until you show them. Before the iPhone, nobody demanded a touchscreen phone. But after the iPhone, nobody wanted to go back. The iPhone was just the beginning. App Store, iPad, Jobs continued building an entire ecosystem. But his health was getting weaker by the day. Stay tuned. A store with no walls, no employees, but making billions of dollars every year. That's the App Store. In 2008, Jobs launched the App Store, an application marketplace for iPhone. Anyone could write an app and sell it to the entire world. This simple idea sparked a revolution. The App Store transformed the iPhone from a phone into a platform. Instagram, Uber, TikTok, WhatsApp, all were born from the App Store. It created millions of jobs and an app economy worth hundreds of billions. In 2010, Jobs shocked again with the iPad. Many laughed, it's just a big iPhone. But Jobs knew what they didn't, people wanted a device between a phone and a laptop. And he was right. The iPad sold 3 million units in its first 80 days. It transformed education, healthcare, art. By now, Apple had built a complete ecosystem: Mac, iPhone, iPad, iPod, iTunes, App Store. All perfectly connected. What's the lesson here? Don't just create a product, create a platform. A good product makes you money. But a good platform creates an entirely new world, where everyone builds and everyone benefits. Apple was at an unprecedented peak. But Jobs' health was deteriorating seriously. His final battle was about to begin. Stay tuned. Steve Jobs knew he was dying. But instead of stopping, he worked more furiously than ever. Because he wanted to leave the world one final thing. In 2009, the pancreatic cancer returned. Jobs had to take leave for a liver transplant. He came back thinner, weaker, but his spirit still burned bright. Despite failing health, Jobs still oversaw every detail of iPhone 4, iPad 2, iCloud. He held daily meetings, reviewed designs, checked every pixel. Colleagues said, he worked as if every day was his last. Jobs' final project was Apple Park, the spaceship-shaped headquarters. He designed every door handle, every glass wall, every row of trees. He wanted it to be an eternal legacy, proof that art and technology can be one. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at home, surrounded by his family. He was 56 years old. His final words, according to his sister Mona Simpson, were, "Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow." Steve Jobs lived 56 years. But he changed how the entire world communicates, works, and creates. He proved that one person, with enough passion and persistence, can truly put a dent in the universe. Steve Jobs is gone. But his legacy lives forever. In the final episode, we'll look back at the entire journey, and draw the ultimate lesson from this extraordinary life. You're watching this video on a device Steve Jobs helped create. And that's just a small part of the legacy he left behind. Steve Jobs wasn't the best engineer. Not the best programmer. Not the most pleasant manager. But he had something very few people have, the ability to see the future before it arrives. Look around you. Smartphones, tablets, apps, digital music, computer animation, all bear Jobs' fingerprint. He didn't just create products, he created how humans interact with technology. But Jobs' greatest legacy isn't a product. It's a philosophy. He taught us that technology and art aren't opposites, they're two sides of the same coin. From an abandoned child in San Francisco, to the creator of the world's most valuable company. From the man fired from his own house, to the savior who returned. Jobs' life is proof that you don't need a perfect beginning to write an extraordinary story. The final lesson from Steve Jobs: life is short. Don't live someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma. Trust your intuition. And remember, stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you for following this entire journey. If you enjoyed this series, hit follow for the story of the next character. Who will it be? Hình. He also dropped out, and also created a $1 trillion company.